Welcome to more wow drama stories, and in this installment OP asks, am I the a-hole? Well, let's see if she is or not. OP writes, background about my husband. He stays up late at night and has to wake up early to go to work. So when he gets back at 5, he has to get his 2 hours nap so he could both make up for lack of sleep and also be ready to stay up late to play with his console. He values his sleep and has one rule in the house that he enforces strictly, which is not to be interrupted while sleeping. He literally put a sign on the bedroom door saying, "Do not wake me up. Under any circumstances, just know, unless somebody's hurt or dead," though in this case he said he still wouldn't be of much help anyway. The kids and I would sometimes wake him up, but for serious reasons. He got mad and started locking the door. I get no access to the room for 2 hours, but that's not the main problem. This past Tuesday, my 3-year-old son had hot oil spill on his hands while his 14-year-old sister was cooking. I heard him scream and saw the oil was covering his hand and half of his arm. I brought the first aid kit, but he was in so much pain and his skin looked really bad. I rushed to wake my husband up. I kept knocking but got no response, so I tried to open it, but it was locked. I spent a while between knocking on the door, he had his phone turned off, and getting dressed after my daughter asked the neighbor to drive us to the hospital. I couldn't waste more time because my son was crying. The neighbor took us to the hospital, and I couldn't help feel livid the whole time. We got home and my husband was pacing around, asking wherever we were and why I didn't answer his text. I blew up on him after I showed him my son's injury and told him that I pounded on the door to wake him up, but he said he had his earbuds on and didn't hear a thing. I called him reckless and neglectful for ignoring a family emergency. He said I could say the same thing about myself for leaving our son unsupervised and causing him to get a burn. I stopped arguing and went to remove the bedroom door lock. He started yelling at me, saying I had no right. I refused to respond. I just walked off to calm down. He didn't stop complaining, calling me bossy and saying that by removing the lock, I've destroyed his peace and quiet and caused him sleep deprivation. He's insisting I put it back, but I refused. I could be wrong for what I've done, but I was frustrated and mad. Am I the a-hole? Well, OP, no, I do not think you are the a-hole by any stretch of the imagination. That must have been really scary what happened, and you couldn't even get your husband to come out of the bedroom. That's really very bad. I think you've got a man-child here, somebody you cannot rely on. But let's see what other people have to say about this. Someone writes, "What the F did I just read? Your husband takes an early evening nap so he can stay up late to play video games? Do your kids have any relationship with him? Because it sounds like he never sees them awake. Obviously not the a-hole." OP replies, "The kids barely interact with him. My 14-year-old has her own stuff to be busy with, but my 3-year-old misses spending time with his dad and wakes up early to see him since it's the only time of the day he gets to see him." Someone else writes, "Not the a-hole. I highly recommend consulting a lawyer and getting a divorce. Your child burned himself with hot oil. Your husband did not seem concerned about this when he found out, but was more than concerned about a lock being removed from the bedroom door. He's clearly showing his priorities, himself. As other people have pointed out, Why does he have to nap right after work so he can stay up late to game? It really does sound like he's avoiding you and your children. Do what is best for you and your children. I absolutely do not believe that he didn't hear you. There's no way he couldn't have. You would have been knocking so hard that it would have sounded like you were trying to break down the door. Someone else comments, not the a-hole, but you are married to one. It's terribly convenient that he values his sleep so he gets to go home, not lift a finger while you do everything. Then he wakes up, gets on his console, and plays until late into the night. Like, what is he even for? And to this, OP replies, honestly, I don't know what it is anymore. He seems to be jumping from one addiction to the other. First it was YouTube, now video games. I mean, yes, he works long hours, but in my opinion, he's become too obsessed with this gaming thing. Someone else comments, not the a-hole. Your son was seriously injured. What if the house had caught fire? Would you have had to try and kick down the door to get your husband's attention? The whole bit about him having to have a 2-hour nap as soon as he gets home from work bugs me. How about he goes to bed at a reasonable hour rather than staying up late to play his console? Does that mean he stays up late gaming? Sounds like he needs to grow up a bit. Someone else writes, oh my word, all kinds of not the a-hole. If you have any technical experience, I can show you how to disable his console so that it looks like it's working, though it won't. To this, OP replies, I don't have access to his console because he hid it after we had a fight over him leaving the dogs out the entire night while playing games. This was in December in cold weather. Now he keeps it locked in a storage box and carries the key in his keychain along with his car key. Someone else writes, not the a-hole. And it's important to note that you had to get help from a neighbor because your husband was being actively useless. He showed you what you can expect in an emergency situation. Thank goodness it wasn't even more serious. And that is nothing. Absolutely no help or support. None. Just whining about his sleep, whining about his games, whining about his privacy. How is he improving your life, sis? Like, for real? Well, everybody so far, it seems, are in agreement that OP is not the a-hole. But let's get some more comments. Not the a-hole. You really need to look into separating from your husband. His top priorities are as follows. 1. Himself. 2. Gaming. 3. Work. This is setting your children up to have a terrible relationship with either their father or both you and their father in the future. It will only be a matter of time before your 14-year-old realizes that she is not in any way important to her father. Your husband sounds just like the smoothie father from that story that recently hit the news. Father buys a peanut butter smoothie for his kid that's allergic to peanuts. And while his son is supposedly in the hospital having an allergic reaction, the father is back at the smoothie shop threatening the employees, saying that they could have killed his son. Your husband cares more about his beauty rest and video games than he does his son, who is very injured, just like how that father cared more about berating employees rather than his own son. Someone else writes, exactly this. He's angry that he looks neglectful because a neighbor knows you couldn't wake him up. His anger has nothing to do with your son not being supervised. He was, accidents happen, and it has nothing to do with a lock on the door. It has everything to do with his embarrassment because now someone outside the home knows he is a selfish person, not the a-hole. And someone else comments, not the a-hole. This is seriously a worth considering divorce level event. Would you and your family even miss him? If he works all day, takes a 2-hour nap, and then stays up all night gaming, when does he spend time with his wife and children? He's really lucky you just removed the door lock instead of shoving it up his bum, which is completely what I would have wanted to do. You have every right to be absolutely livid. He failed you and your family in an emergency. There is no excuse in the world that would ever make this okay. Please let this be a fake, fictional post because I don't want to believe that there is a father and husband out there this damn crappy. And we have another comment saying, not the a-hole. I'm so angry on your behalf. Maybe if he got his bum out of bed and helped with the kids during the busiest time of the day, then he could have been supervising. He naps during dinner / homework / bathing / bedtime, so he can stay up and play games. He is aware he's not 16 anymore, right? So his stroppy, moody tantrum phase about not being disturbed is done. Then he tries to blame it on you? His actions would be absurdly laughable if it weren't so sad. You'd be better off as a single mom to 2 kids rather than 3. He is a terrible husband and father. Your son is severely injured and is having a wobbler because nap time is more important, and also because you didn't answer the phone while single-handedly dealing with an emergency. He's such a jerk. Well, Opie's posts got a lot of responses, and those are just some of them, and everybody agrees Opie is not the a-hole. And I've got to say, Opie, I agree with the last comment there that said you have got 3 children, not 2, and your husband cannot be relied on to be there for you and your family, and that is really sad. There doesn't seem to be any explanation for why he has been behaving this way. He just seems completely uninterested in his own family. I'm not sure somebody like this can change. I'm really sorry, Opie. Opie also went on to put in more information to say that she is 33 and her husband is 37. She cannot drive for health reasons and really therefore needed him to be there for them. You would think that, especially in a case like that he would make sure that they could access him when they need help, or even better, not sleep 2 hours right after he gets home from work so he can play games all night. It also doesn't sound like Opie's husband is the kind of person that would be open to any kind of compromise, like, let's say, maybe over the weekends only do that and be there with the family during the weekdays or something to that effect. Well, that's it for this installment. Thank you so much for joining me. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me to grow my channel. And I'll see you again real soon for more wild drama stories.